Hello again. This is another little video I put together to help explain how sequential declarative knowledge and procedural knowledge interplay with working memory. So the circle on the left is our little diagram of working memory. The reason it's small is because the capacity of working memory is small. Remember, working memory can only house 7 plus or minus 2 items. And so I've broken that up into 7 spaces, 7 pieces of a pie. And the bigger circle is there to represent long-term memory, which has a much larger capacity. And let's have a talk about declarative knowledge and procedural knowledge. Declarative knowledge is knowledge that, declarative knowledge is just facts that you know, that you've learned. A lot of it's academic facts that you know. Examples would be Albany is the capital of New York. 55 is the speed limit in New York State, that sort of stuff. And procedural knowledge is knowledge how. And procedural knowledge is the type of knowledge where when you practice something over and over again, you can do it without having to pay a lot of attention to it. Because some people call it muscle memory, or other people call it this effect where you don't have to really spend a lot of your attentional resources on doing something that's sometimes very complicated. And the reason is because you practice it so much. So the sequential piece of sequential declarative knowledge is that for pieces of declarative knowledge, sometimes you can put them in a series. Like steps to be able to snowboard, or how you ride a bike. Because yes, it would be difficult to write down the steps of riding a bike to somebody who's never ridden a bike or seen a bike before, but you could do it. It'd be difficult to how to explain balance and things like that, but you could write out a list. First do this, you pick up the bike, grab it by the handlebars, put your left foot on the pedal, straddle the bike. You can go through the different steps. That's sequential declarative knowledge. It's just declarative knowledge that can be put in a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stepwise order. So the rule is that only sequential declarative knowledge can be changed to procedural knowledge. And the only way you can change sequential declarative knowledge to procedural knowledge is through practice. So in this example, we're going to be talking about something that's incredibly important to education. In fact, it's important to everything, but specifically education, and that's reading. So reading involves multiple steps. And I'm sure many of you can't remember back to when you were first reading, but if you watch a young child today who is in the beginnings of their reading process, you will realize that a reading process for them is has a lot of steps. They're sounding the words out, and if you have an individual who is trying to follow the rules of reading because they don't know them very well, they're holding that information in long-term memory as sequential declarative knowledge, then they read very haltingly, very slow, and they have a very difficult time with reading comprehension because frankly their working memory is filled with all of these. Let me see the little square, follow the square. All of these steps that they've put into long-term memory are steps to reading. They must bring all those steps over into working memory if they're going to think about those steps. And with that many steps, and because reading has a lot of steps to it, with that many steps, it's going to completely fill their working memory space. So they have room to do no other thing. Now, if a teacher is unaware of this process, and they have a student that, frankly, really needs a lot of help on their reading comprehension, the last thing that you would want to do is give this child a reading comprehension strategy, because the reading comprehension strategy will serve to fill up some of these working memory spaces. If that's the case, because they don't have any available room in their working memory spaces, what will happen is they will become a poorer reader because they are supplanting the rules of reading with the strategies for reading comprehension. The real answer to helping somebody increase their reading comprehension is, first, they need to practice reading, so that reading goes from sequential declarative knowledge, all these steps, which are being brought into all these spaces in working memory, to procedural knowledge. And I'd like to, just as a metaphor, I'd like you to think of procedural knowledge versus sequential declarative like this. Sequential declarative, having all these steps, would be like a whole bunch of separate Word files, like Microsoft Word files. Declarative knowledge would be a single line over here, and that would be like a PDF file. So just like when you started to read, and you had to remember all the rules of reading, as you read more and more, these 7 steps that I have here slowly became 5 steps, 2 steps. And then now for you, reading is only a single step, so that when you read, it is only occupying one working memory space, because now it's procedural knowledge. And you have all these extra working memory spaces to do other things. Like, for example, a reading comprehension strategy could now fit in there without bothering your ability to read.